So we'll give everybody just one more moment to join in, and I want to welcome Greg to the chat and to the webinar today. And I'm really excited because Greg's videos have been very popular on our YouTube page. You might have had the experience of going into your primary care doctor or to your neurologist, and they say, go ahead, start working out, get social, change your diet. We'll see you in a year. And a lot of times the question is like, okay, well, what do I do next? How do I incorporate these changes into my life? And we see it all the time at Emory. We get the recommendation, and then the next question is, now what? And so we're going to be talking with Greg today a little bit about the mind diet. And he's going to talk about ways to prepare meals from home. We're going to be talking a little bit about something that has been a big question at CEP, which is food labels and what makes them important. I was in the grocery store this week, and one of my guilty pleasures is a Coca-Cola. I'm an Atlanta girl, and they didn't have any of the Coke Zeros, and I almost grabbed a caffeine-free Coke. It had like 39 grams of sugar in it, and I would have never known if I hadn't read the label. So we'll be talking a little bit about why those small things can make a big impact as you get into changing your diet and adapting some of the recommendations from the care providers that you see and love in your life. But before we get going, for those of you who are new to the session, welcome to CEP Live, a really, really unique program that's a partnership with Emory and Georgia Tech. And what our aim is in these sessions is to provide an opportunity to empower families and those affected by memory loss, uh, the tools and the research and the lifestyle that promotes joy, purpose, health, and wellness. And a lot of times we're talking about technology, we're talking about physical environments, we're talking about getting active. But today we're talking about something that really can revolutionize your experience of having MCI, which is being empowered to approach your diet in a different way. And it's not an easy thing, especially when we have things like the Coca-Cola that is like we're emotionally attached to. And it really doesn't matter who you are. You probably have things in your diet that make you feel good. And there's a way to balance that with the things that are also good for the health of your brain. And that's what Greg is going to be sharing with us. And what's amazing is that Greg is a registered dietitian, and he's been doing this work for a good long while. He's got a bachelor's degree from Georgia State University, a master's in nutrition and human performance from Logan University, and really has this desire to educate, especially after learning that men everywhere have chronic diseases at much higher rates compared to women. And that goes, we can talk about just really being empowered with information and how it can help you change and pivot your life. So he owns a business called Optimal Plan Nutrition. He's counseled hundreds of men to bridge the gap between nutrition and life goals, and has been a part of CEP for 2 years now, talking about the mind diet and how nutrition plays a big role in slowing cognitive decline. Most importantly, Greg has a wife and daughter and plays 4 instruments in his spare time and is a lot more than just a nutritionist. But he comes to this platform with a lot of passion and a lot of expertise. And we're really excited to have you today, Greg.
So excited to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm trying to get my slides going. It's wild because I'm approaching year 3 um, at CEP, and to me that's that's just wild.
It's
Since
crazy. We started the program like and a month later we went into the pandemic and the shutdown.
Hmm.
And that's
So,
really where this like webinar came from, is like, how can we bridge the gap between what happens in research, what happens in the clinic, and making the information accessible.
in
Uh,
real life.
so thanks for being a part of that.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. Everyone, thanks so much for being on today and just kind of using your valuable time to tune into such an important project that we at CEP are doing here. So today we're going to be talking about, it was that popular topic on YouTube. I saw the video and it had so many views of the meal planning aspect of when it comes to the mind diet. And I wanted to expand that a bit today and talking about meal planning in regards to nutrition and food labeling. So that's a very important topic that we need to discuss today. So that's what we'll be doing. I'm excited to get started. Let me go ahead and pull it up. Right. So, meal planning and creating meals for your mind diet, part two. I'm going to try, Megan, to make a series, in a sense, of this. So, I want to kind of establish more cohesion and more suspense so that you all can come back and that you all can tell other people about this phenomenal work that we're doing here. So, just wanted to let you all know today is going to be kind of establishing more of a series talking about meal planning and different aspects of meal planning. Today, we're going to talk about the food labeling aspect of it. So, just a question: do you know how to read food labels? This is just, go ahead, post your answer in the chat box. Yes, no, any types of confusions that you may have or fears when it comes to food labeling. I'll be honest with you. You have food labels and then you have nutrition labels, right? The food label is like the big umbrella, and then the nutrition piece of the food label kind of goes under that because there are so many different components to consider when it comes to a food label. And I want to kind of talk about how to read them today. Not only that, but what is required to be on food labels. What are some common themes and common trends that you'll find when it comes to all food labels? Now, of course, we know all food labels and all products are not the same, but they will contain some of the same similar information and things that we want to know and things that we need to know. I'm seeing some comments in the chat. Somebody says, no confusion. If I can't read the ingredient, I know I don't need to ingest it. That's very funny. Very true in a lot of cases. Depending on the source of the product, where it comes from, how it was produced, how it was manufactured, that ingredient list can go from start off with like two ingredients, and by the time it's on your plate, end up to like 20 different ingredients just because of how food is processed here in this country. I will say this: not all processed food is quote unquote bad for you. Let's say, for example, we take flax seeds and we have ground flax seeds. Ground flax seeds can be considered as a processed food. Why? Because it went through some kind of process, mechanical altering to make it from a normal regular flax seeds to a ground flax seed. So that's processed food right there. But we know that flaxseed contains a lot of beneficial vitamins and nutrients and can be very beneficial for our overall health. Now, that's one side of a processed food. Let's say, for example, another processed food is a candy bar. Now, we know that a candy bar has mainly sugar. Depending on if it's like a chocolate bar or not, it could have very high saturated fat content. It doesn't really contain a lot of beneficial nutrients. So a candy bar as a processed food is way different than like flaxseed as a processed food. Does that make sense? So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Not all processed food is problematic. It just depends on what's actually in that processed food. And that's what I'm looking forward to discussing with you all right now. So, of course, we're talking about the mind diet, and this is a slide that was incorporated in a previous presentation of mine that I gave here at CEP Live, where we're talking about foods that we want to consume. So every day we want to get 3 servings of whole grains. We want to get at least a serving of vegetable. At least. I know it only says one. We want to get more than one, but at least one. The Mediterranean diet calls for an optional 1 glass of wine because of the resveratrol in the red grapes, which can promote good health and function. So that's optional. Of course, we want to have our olive oils. We want to get our leafy greens, our nuts, beans, berries, chicken or poultry, fish. These are things that we want to consume because these are all really proven to help support cognitive function and really great for heart health as well. So that's just a recap right here. Something else here, we see different food groups and what the actual portion sizes are. So this slide here shows us how many servings of that individual food, while this one shows us what that actual serving looks like. All right. So with our vegetables, I know it said 1 serving. So what does 1 serving look like? It looks like 1 cup of fresh leafy greens or 1/2 cup of greens cooked or our whole grains. What does 1 serving look like? It looks like a 1/2 cup cooked whole grain, our brown rices, our quinoas, our lentils. Well, that's more of a legume, but some of those products that are whole grains, we want to get at least 1/2 cooked version of that at least 3 times a day. So we have nuts, we have beans, berries, poultries, fish, olive oil. So we see the different serving sizes of those right there. And last time we came together, we talked about how to incorporate meal planning into your day. Just remember, meal planning does not have to be an overwhelming process. Know that you can either meal plan for a single meal in your week just to kind of make it easy for you, just to make sure you have good meals for that particular meal. For example, if you find yourself struggling with eating lunch, that might be where you want to start meal planning, just lunch. If you find yourself struggling with dinner or struggling with breakfast, you might just want to focus on meal planning just for that particular meal, just so that you're getting good nutrition throughout the course of a week and not depending on things like chance or kind of like emotional eating or running out to the nearest fast food place because you're really hungry. So that's what we talked about here. So this was just a sample day meal plan. So as you can see, this was just taking some of those mind diet foods and incorporating it into a schedule, saying, okay, for my breakfast, I'm gonna have overnight oats and berries. For my lunch, it's gonna be avocado on whole wheat toast. Dinner, I'll have some brown rice, some salmon, and some greens with some olive oil. Snacks will be a handful of nuts, walnuts or almonds, or 1/2 of berries, cup of cooked berries with plain yogurt. So this is just a sample meal plan for somebody who's looking just to get some options on their table and say, you know what, I need to eat more mind diet foods. Here is a way I can do this. This is just a sample menu. See if I have any. Okay, Megan, I see that you posted the video in the chat box. Make sure you all check that out when you have a chance. So really quick, I wanted to do another breakdown of carbohydrates. And I know we're going to be talking about food labeling today. The reason why I want to touch on carbohydrates specifically is because carbohydrates normally is that food category that tends to be the easiest to quantify when it comes to reading nutrition labels. Normally, no matter what carb source it is, whether it's rice, whether it's pasta, whether it's noodles, whether it's dairy, whether it's fruit, there's always some type of nutrition label on that kind of product. This is just from my personal experience of what I've seen. It's really easier. It's easier to quantify those nutrients in carb foods than it is, for example, like a piece of chicken, right? Because with a piece of chicken, even though it goes by its weight, so like if you weigh 3 ounces of chicken, that would be considered a serving, anywhere between 3 and 4 ounces. But that's harder because nobody just carries a food scale with them around all the time. So I wanted to kind of discuss carbohydrates in food labeling today. So as we know, carbohydrates, we have our starchy carbs, we have our fibrous carbs, we also have our sweet carbs. So these are the typical categories of your carbohydrates. You'll typically find, if you read on a food label and it says total carbohydrates, under that you'll typically find total sugar. You'll also find total amounts of fiber. Sugar, fiber, starch. Those three are the main categories that make up what that carbohydrate label will tell you. And complex carbs, these take longer to digest. They release their energy slower than regular carbs. So complex carbs are carbs that will contain more fiber than they will contain overall grams of sugar, right? Because I just said that you have fiber, you have sugar, you have starch. So complex carbs tend to be more starchy and will contain a little bit more fiber and less simple sugars. For example, a cup of orange juice or a cup of apple juice, that's majority from that carbohydrate source. Majority of those carbs are coming from the sugar in that product. If we switch to like beans or whole grains, these are complex carbs because they don't have as much sugar, but they have more fiber and are more starchy. Fibrous carbs, they're slower to digest. And if we're looking to increase our fiber throughout the day, we want to aim for about 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day. We also want to make sure that we are getting good hydration, making sure we're getting good water intake. I'll just share this with you. If you're consuming fiber, like high fiber foods, and not a lot of water, you might be constipated. All right. So drinking that fluid with the fiber kind of tends to promote healthier bowel movements and make that process a little bit easier for you. So here are some tips. You can add beans to your meals. Like you can add your beans to rice or beans to a taco or whatever that calls for. You can swap out the white pasta for whole wheat pasta, which will tend to carry a little bit more fiber content. Whole wheat products will tend to have more fiber than your regular white product. You can add nuts or seeds to your salads. You can also do the same things to your smoothies. You can do the same things to your parfaits and etc. Another thing that you can do, you can add fruits with edible seeds that are fibrous carbs. For example, berries, whether that's strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, whatever the berry may be, because of those tiny seeds that it contains, those contain fiber. Those aid with digestion and those aid with bowel movements as well. And overall, a very strong, healthy mind diet food that can really help promote cognitive function and be great for overall health. Cruciferous vegetables, we can always add these: broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, cauliflower. Again, this is just a recap, but again, really important to know because a lot of time we think that we have to purchase the fresh version, right? Well, a lot of times these can be purchased in the bags, right? Almost any grocery store you go to, you'll find a bag of Brussels sprouts or a bag of broccoli that's already chopped, already washed, ready to go. All you have to do is just cook it, right? So it doesn't always have to be super laborious and complicated. There are ways that we can make sure to get these nutrient intakes, keep that convenience, but also maintain the healthy component of those meals. So, successful food labeling. I wanted to share with you all 5 things on average that your food label will contain. All right. Food labels will tell us what ingredients are in foods. Food labels will tell us how much the product weighs. Food labels will tell us the identity of the product. So the simple layman's term product: is this rice? Is this yogurt? Is this a cracker? Is this soup, cheese? That label will be on there. Food labels also identify a product's business, distributor, manufacturer, etc. So we'll see brand names on a product, but of course, That's not what the product is, it's just the brand, but the label will tell us what that actual product is. And then mainly what we're going to be focused on, food labels will provide nutrition facts about the product. So let's delve into that a little bit. So here we see the statement of identity. So this is the common name for the product. If you were to look at this label, you might say that's Ben's. Well, it's not. It's Ben's as far as the brand name goes, but this is rice, right? It is whole grain brown rice, whole grain brown ready rice, right? This is the statement of identity. Sometimes you may see a food product that might say yogurt or Greek yogurt or 100% fruit juice or protein powder, whatever those, that statement of identity is, tells you the exact product that you are looking at or that you are consuming. That's very clear because if it comes to certain allergens or if it comes to certain intolerances, people need to know exactly what they are consuming. And if this was obscured in any kind of way, there could be a lot of issues with a lot of companies. So it's very clear. FDA says you have to put what this product is on that box. So if it's cereal, it's going to let you know it's cereal. If it's oatmeal, it's going to let you know it's oatmeal, regardless of the brand. So that's the first thing, the statement of identity. Another thing is the statement of weight. So in this case, we have some Honey Nut Cheerios. And, on the box, we can see a whole bunch of things. We see naturally flavored. We see gluten free. These are all health claims, right? That they're good to know, but sometimes we can get a little confused at these things. And sometimes there can be health claims on there that really don't mean much. For example, if something says all natural, there's really no basis to really know what all natural is. And maybe when we get back together, I didn't include this in this slide. We can include some of those like government, like regulated names that products can use and they actually have meaning. And then we can like identify some of those that are kind of fluff and don't really tend to have any meaning. So in this case, we see the statement of weight. We see that this is Honey Nut Cheerios and that it weighs 10.8 ounces, right? So this is normally found at the bottom of the front of a package. And some of you all right now might be able to just kind of eyeball around the room a food label, right? Look at that label and see if you see the weight of that at the bottom of the front of that package. Most likely you'll see it there. In common units, you'll find ounces. For example, this one says 10.8 ounces. You will find grams. Sometimes it might say XX amount of grams. Sometimes it will say pounds. So all of these can be kind of converted and kind of like there's all of them equal different amounts. I don't know them off the top of my head, but I do know that 16 ounces does equal 1 pound. All right. So in the case of this Honey Nut Cheerios box, it's 10.8 ounces, which is close to 1 pound. So we covered our statement of identity, which is what the product is, our statement of weight, which is how much the product weighs. Next, we have what I want to talk about is the ingredients label. Now, I know this is very wordy, but I'll go ahead and go through this right here. This is very important because if we're looking at the order of ingredients, we have to know that the product, the first ingredients on the product, the first ones are the ones that are contained in the highest quantities in that specific product. All right. So it lists the ingredients in order of highest to lowest weight. So as we can see, this product in the yellow, whatever this product is, which I don't quite know exactly what it is, but we know that the main ingredient in this would be enriched flour, which is made with wheat flour, malted barley, niacin, reduced iron, thiamine, all these other things. What's important to know about the ingredients label The reason why you might want to consider reading this is because they will contain the common allergens. All right. Common allergens, there's 8 of them. Off the top of my head, they are tree nuts, regular nuts, you have shellfish, fish, then you have soy, that's 5. Um, milk, there's a couple of them. I'm sorry. There's 8 of them. There's like 8 of them though. All right. So these are going to be highlighted in your ingredients list. And in the yellow label, for example, you will see that the allergens will be in parentheses. All right. So a lot of times these ingredients labels will put whatever allergen that food contains in parentheses to let you know that in this enriched flour, I want to let you know where the allergen is. It'll tell you in parentheses what's in there so that you can see that if you have a wheat intolerance, or if you're allergic to wheat, or if you're allergic to milk, or if you're allergic to soy, that this is something that this product contains and you should leave it out. The other side of it is, let's say, for example, the other label that we see here, that's not in the yellow, that's in the gray. We see at the bottom of this label, it lets us know that this product contains wheat, right? So this is another way of identifying an allergen in a food. Look at the bottom of the ingredients list, and it will tell you this contains this product, or this product was made in a factory that produces X allergen, or this product was made in an oil that contains, or that was also fried, that was used to fry this product right here, to let you know what types of allergens may be in the foods that you're consuming. So this is very important to know. So the actual nutrition facts. Some of us may look at this right here and say, you know what? This is confusing. This is giving me a headache. I need to put on my glasses. I have a migraine reading this. Well, today I just want to give you a simple way for you to understand this right here. Now, no matter what the product is, it will contain some kind of nutrition label. Sometimes the nutrition facts for some products, let's say, for example, we go to a restaurant, we go to Chick-fil-A or whatever restaurant we go to, the nutrition facts as you see it here may not be indicated on the menu. In a case like that, you can go online to find the nutrition information on certain products or certain restaurants. So I just wanted to share that with you. What's important to know here is that in the blue we have the serving information. So this right here tells us what a serving is. So a serving in this particular product, if we look at the serving size, which is bolded, we see that one serving is 1 cup. Right above that, we see that this particular item has 4 servings in the whole container. This is probably one of the most important things to know about a nutrition label, how to interpret this information. Because if I look at the rest of the nutrition facts, starting from calories all the way down, a lot of us tend to think that no matter what the product is, they are telling me the nutrition facts that the whole container has, when that's not the case. The nutrition facts on any type of container tells you what the nutrition information is for one serving. Okay. So if I wanted to find out how many calories, for example, this whole container has, I have to take 280 and multiply that by 4, because there are 4 servings of 1 cup in this entire container. That's something that we need to know how to interpret. So if I wanted to find out, if I want to know how many calories I'm about to consume in this whole container, it would be 280 times 4. And if I do the math, I think that's 1020. 1000, no, not 1020, 1120, I believe. Somebody please do the math for me. So 1120, somewhere around that, calories in this whole container, which means if I wanted to find out how many grams of fat is in the whole container, I will take that 9 and multiply it by 4. So again, we see number one tells us about the serving information. Number two tells us about the calorie information. Number three tells us about the actual nutrients in that food. And some key nutrients I want you to keep in mind of your total fat. Actually, the important nutrients I want you to keep in mind are the ones that are bolded. The total fat, the cholesterol, the sodium, total carbohydrates, and protein. So total fat, total carbohydrates, and total protein, these are where those 280 calories are coming from, right? Because the main sources of calories are fat, are carbs, and are protein. So that's where the bulk of our calories are coming from. Now, when it comes to our cholesterol and sodium, these are also very important to keep in mind when it comes to certain heart conditions that we may have, when it comes to overall heart health, right? So we want to make sure that we're keeping our sodium limited as much as possible. We want to make sure that we're keeping our total cholesterol intake as low as possible. So number 4 helps us do that, right? So it tells us the quick guide to the percent daily value. Now, this right here is telling us how many percent, or how, like, the percentage of that amount in a day's worth of eating, or how much you're supposed to intake in one day. Now, this is based on 2,000 calories. Some of us might not be consuming 2,000 calories, or our intake requires us to consume less than 2,000 calories. So if you see 5% or less, this means that this product is this is a low, source of this. If you see 20% or more, we can see that this product is a high source of this. So for example, if I look at my total fat, I see 9 grams. I see 12%. This tells me that this is a somewhere between 5 and 20 medium source of fat. But if I look at the saturated fat on this, and I see that 4.5 grams, that's 23% of my total intake, or what I should be getting in that day, I can tell right now that this is a high source of saturated fat. And saturated fat, as we know, is one of those sources of dietary fats that typically come from animal products. So this right here tells me that this might be some kind of product that contains either just a straight up animal source of protein, or some kind of butter, or some kind of saturated fat in that case. That's my prediction of what this can be. So if I'm consuming the whole container of this product, I have to multiply that 23 times 4 to find out what percentage of my total intake of that specific thing I'm getting. And that would then equal about 90-ish percent, which is kind of high for that day. Now, if we're looking at our carbohydrate source, right, we see that this has 34 grams of carbohydrates, which is about 12% of our daily intake. Again, 12 is between 5 and 20, which is relatively moderate there for one serving, right? So that's kind of how we understand nutrition labeling when it comes to that right there. We also see at the bottom under protein, we see, and what's interesting is that there's no percentage for protein. I don't know if you all remarked that. There's no percentage for protein. That's because everybody's protein requirements differ. Let's say, for example, you are 60 and above, you have higher protein requirements. Let's say, for example, you just got into an injury, you have higher protein requirements. Let's say you're an athlete, you're a bodybuilder, or you are some kind of competitive athlete, or an Olympic athlete or whatnot. You have higher protein requirements compared to somebody else who may have lower protein requirements. So that one right there is a little different. We can see under protein certain vitamins that this contains. So we see that this is a good source of calcium. It's a high source of calcium because it's 25%, which is above 20. And we can see that it is not a significant source of vitamin D. We can tell that this is somewhere between low and high in iron on the lower side at 8%, and that potassium lower at 10%. So if we can kind of conceptualize these 4 points when it comes to reading nutrition labels, it will make our meal planning a little bit easier, especially when it comes to certain snacks that we choose. Snacks are one of the most important foods, in my personal opinion, that you should look at the nutrition label to make the most informed choice. Because a lot of the snacks that we do purchase, especially the processed snacks that are on shelves, that are in the bags, contain these nutrition labels. And we want to make sure that we're not eating too many sources of saturated fats, of sodium. We're getting good protein, and we're really being watchful of the amount of sugar that we're consuming. So here are some tips when you're looking at nutrition labels. First off, I want you to start with your template for meal planning. That's very important because if you plan to fail, then you fail. I'm sorry, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. So having that meal planning template can really be a great start in order for you to have a good plan when you go to the grocery store or when you're going to go look for those items for your meal plan. Sometimes it's easier to focus on one category at a time. For example, there's a lot of numbers here on this nutrition label. Let's kind of look at it one at a time. If I know that I want to make sure that I have, a good protein intake, then I'm going to just start with looking at protein. I might look at two different products and just compare their protein content to see, which one I should choose, one over the other one. I might look at the sugar content between one versus the other one. If I see that one item has 5 times more sugar than the other one, I might choose the other one because the other one has less sugar, which can be a lot better for my health and a lot better for my brain function overall. So when it comes to snacks, I want you to really look for snacks that contain fiber. And as we spoke about earlier, fiber will come in your whole grains, primarily, especially when it comes to those snack options. You'll also find fiber in products like your vegetables. So as we are considering mind diet foods, really incorporating our vegetables and our whole grains will help us get to that 25 to 30 grams of fiber daily. And I will share this, majority of people in this country are not getting 25 to 30 grams of fiber daily because overall fruit and vegetable consumption is very low in this country. So we want to make sure that we are ahead of the ball curve and we're doing everything that we can to get that fiber in. So we want to choose snacks that also contain protein. This is very important for overall fullness, and satiety is what we call it, that feeling of fullness. When you consume a snack or any kind of food that contains just sugar or just a carbohydrate, especially if we have like conditions like diabetes, for example, it will drive our sugars straight up at the speed of light. That's not really at the speed of light, but that's a little joke, right? But it will drive it straight up. If we contain or consume a snack that contains protein with that sugar, it tends to drive up our sugar, but it will drive it up at a rate that's a lot more steady. It's the same concept with fiber, right? Fiber helps with our kind of helps to like not have our sugar just drive straight up, but kind of help balance how our sugar rises. So we want to definitely get some protein when we're consuming snacks. We want to make sure we are getting low saturated fats and low trans fats when it comes to our snacks. So to do this, we really are cautious for foods that contain high butter, margarine, lard, fats like that. We have to be very careful for products that we see that have what we call hydrogenated oils, which are a significant source of trans fats, and we're not seeing them as much now anymore. But they used to be very high in products like pastries, donuts, and whatnot, which don't really have any positive health benefits for us. So, looking at nutrition labels, we want to break it down, looking at the proteins, healthy fats, the fibrous carbs, the starchy carbs, and make our best decision when it comes to foods based off of those things right there. So, nutrition labeling, once again, is very important. When it comes down to it, if you look at FDA.gov or just type in nutrition label FDA.gov, you'll kind of see this come up and you'll be able to just kind of print it out, plaster it on your wall, on your refrigerator or whatnot, which can be a really good guide and a really great way for you to learn how to read nutrition labels. All right. So that's what I had for you all today. I am so intrigued to know what you all think about today's topic, what questions you all have. I would love to answer them.